Hello everyone, Flybywobble69 here, and today's video we are looking at the next ship in our Down the Line series, going to the Delny. This is the Tier 9 Soviet DD, the Tashkent. Now, the Tashkent here, located at Tier 9, honestly was a very fun boat for me to play. I really enjoy her, and I always find myself constantly going back to her and playing her every now and then. Though I, for some reason, have a lower level commander with her. I believe I only have like 11 or 12 pointer. So the build that I have on the main screen before you is my recommendation if it is a 21 captain build on the ship, which I very much recommend playing the ship more and more and more and getting a 21 point commander, because you will be getting a lot out of her, especially with that 21 point commander, as you will with every ship, but especially this one. I do find that these Soviet DD gunboats going down to the Delny line are a little bit more commander heavy, meaning that I feel like the higher level commander or a higher level commander is kind of more required to kind of get the most out of the ship or get to a point where it's decently competitive. And I'll go explain further on that when I'm talking about further on in the video. But yeah, like, wow, the Tashkent for me was a big step up from the Kiev, and it does not disappoint, guys. I feel like this ship for a lot of players will be a super fun ship to play. It is very strong at its tier, but again, you have to play it in a specific manner, because I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've played against Tashkent players that go flying right into the cap and they go ahead and die. We've all seen it. Potentially, we've all have done it. But yes, you have to have some situational awareness with these ships in particular, because that concealment value is so high. Usually you have an above average time on the rudder shift and turning circle radius, as they are Soviet. They don't handle the best when compared to other destroyers, so you're going to have to use some extra caution when playing them. Again, we've kind of talked about in previous videos, these ships are very good second wave support destroyers, as they are kind of developed as flotilla leaders, and they are just a pure gunboat in their purest form. Though at the Tashkent, you finally have access to 10-kilometer torpedoes, which I'll get to in a little bit when I talk about the torpedoes, which again is going to be super nice because it allows you to be kind of a dual threat, not only with your guns, but with your torpedoes as well. And I do find myself landing a lot more torpedoes now with the Tashkent than I did with the Kiev or previous tiers. So that is super nice. But like we always do, we're going to go through, kind of dig under the hood, talk about some stats here with the Tashkent, give a little bit of tips and tricks, some of my thoughts on her, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some gameplay on her and go over kind of what helped me elevate my Tashkent game to the next level to get the most out of her. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to look at our armor scheme first. Again, nothing much has changed here. You're going to get that 19mm nose, that 19mm ass with a 19mm midsection, and a 19mm deck as well. Pretty standard destroyer here in regards of Tier 9. No improved armor plates, nothing. Just standard DD level stuff. Once you see, when we get to the next ship, the Delny, eventually the Khabarovsk, the gearing has a little bit of a midsection. Like, there's certain destroyers that do have kind of improved armor plating in specific spots of their ship, which is going to help them with HE mitigation, taking damage from other various ships as well. So, but the Tashkent, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that yet. When we get to the next tier, obviously that's going to be more of a highlight. I feel like a lot of my destroyer videos, when I go ahead and show you the armor scheme, it's pretty much going to be right here. What you see, it's going to be very standard. Not much is really changing with the armor scheme with destroyers, right? So, moving into that survivability, we are clocking in at 21,800. Obviously, I'm running the survivability flag, which is bumping you up to 22,900, and then you go ahead and take that survivability expert skill, which I believe is a tier 3 captain skill, which is going to boost you up even further, which I do recommend, as you are a gunboat, and you're going to be taking damage more reliably, especially when because you're open water gunboating in these ships. So that's just, again, something that's going to be self-explanatory. And again, when you're looking at the HP values of other destroyers at this tier, I believe the Paolo Emilio and the Felix Schultz are just etching out the Tashkent, with the Paolo Emilio coming in at 24,400 and the Felix Schultz coming in at 24,200. The Tashkent is coming in at 21,800. So you're basically right there up at the tippy top. Pretty darn comparable or competitive with Tier 10 DDs as well, though there are some phenomenal gunboats at Tier 10 Down the road, we will cover that obviously either have super heals, improved heals, just larger HP pools in general. So where that's going to be a little bit diminished with this advantage. But for tier 9, for sure, this is a massive advantage, and you're going to need that, especially when you're running the gunboat build with the heal. So looking at the artillery of the Tashkent, and again, I'll go ahead and show the firing angles right here in the bottom left hand of the screen. Pretty comfortable firing angles, guys. I did notice this. Very easy to use. Yes, you do have to show just a tad bit of a side profile when getting that number 3 turret in the mix, but very comfortable. I found it a little bit more usable than like the Kiev, for example, and especially better than the low tiers or medium tier ships like the Minsk, the Gnevny, where that kind of the 3rd and 4th turrets or 5th turret in some cases kind of have trouble getting online, either with their slow turret traverse or slower turret traverse, I might add, or they're kind of like one turret gun, one gun per turret. Kind of load out. It's harder to kind of get that online. You're definitely showing a way larger side profile than you are with the Tashkent, which is nice. I definitely like these guns that have the 2 guns per barrel on DDs. It's just a little easier to use. Usually, the gun firing angles are better, which obviously we see here with the Tashkent. Now, our reload is coming down to 4.4 seconds, but that is because I'm going ahead and slotting in that 6th slot, the main battery, mod, which is again going to be decreasing our reload time, which is what you want to see. If we are looking at the standard configuration of the reload of the Tashkent, I believe you are coming in at 5 seconds, which is again what you saw in the Kiev. I do recommend taking the reload, as you can't take gun like the gunfire, what is artillery plotting room, whatever it's the artillery one that extends your main fighting range. You know what I'm trying to say. You can't take that on the tier 9 or the tier 10, which again is, I think it's kind of outdated in my opinion. I would like to see that as a buff. I think that would directly buff these ships, as that's 4 points I no longer have to spec into my commander to extend that gunfiring range, and I can use to other aspects of my ship. But again, that's a wargaming decision. That's not a me decision. If it was me, I probably would allow that, just because these ships in the current meta now, there's other gunboats that can extend their range further, take different artillery room mods, whatnot, to extend that gun range, and it's really starting to power creep these DDs. Though a lot of these DDs, as we've talked about previously, did receive a lot of changes in this update, which again make them more competitive. But I felt like the buffs that these ships got were definitely made more for the mid to lower tiers than they are for like the Tashkent, the Kiev, and or the Delny. So just my opinion. Again, I don't want to rush too much. I want to explain why I feel that as we continue down this video. The 180-degree turn time is 10.3 seconds. Again, we've had way worse in the middle tiers, so this is super nice. Again, it's not worse enough where I would say, hey, we need to take expert marksman, or hey, we need to take in the slot 3, which is the artillery one that allows the turret traverse a little faster. We don't need to take that anymore. I think there's other ones that are more impactful and important, so I'd kind of go ahead and overlook that one. Standard dispersion values, but your maximum range is clocking in at 12.7. Now, if you go ahead and take that commander skill in the 4th slot, which let me go ahead and show you guys, which is this main battery and AA expert, it's going to extend your main battery firing range by 20%, and of course it's also going to do damage from AA shell explosions by 15, but really don't care about that. It's kind of just an extra, cream on top there, guys. It's going to extend your range to about 15 kilometers, which is going to be awesome. That really starts emphasizing the longer range, medium range kind of gunboat DD build, which is going to be super trolly to a lot of ships who have floatier shells or larger surface ships that, like battleships that really don't want to waste a salvo on you, because that's how battleship players do usually play if they can't cut the Citadel ribbons. And usually they're firing AP, which is going to do a lot of the only overpen damage mostly per se. So it's going to be a great asset to have. So anyhow, that's why I recommend taking that skill, because you can't slot it in the equipment slot. You can't take the gun extender, which is rather disappointing. But then that's the 4 points we have to spec into this thing, especially if we're playing this gunboating build, which I would 100% back and recommend. Looking at torpedoes, we actually have 3 torpedo launchers of 3 torpedoes, which again are super comfortable. Like I always talk about this on my channel, the triple launchers and the quintuplet launchers, that's the 5, feel the most comfortable to me in the game. The quad launchers, I don't know what it is with that dispersion, guys. It is ass. Always creates the battleship size gaps that our battleships don't even have to maneuver or can easily identify and go right through. So the 3 is great. And you have three launchers of the 533 millimeter torp tubes. 180-degree turn time is about 6 seconds, not bad at all. The reload time is about 117, just shy of 2 minutes. Range is 10 kilometers, super comfortable. Maximum damage is 14,400, which is pretty standard for Russian DDs at this tier. And speed is coming in at 58 knots with a detectability range of 1.1, which is giving enemies about a 7.4 second reaction time with these torpedoes. Obviously, you see that I don't spec any torpedo skill. I don't slot any torpedo upgrade, and that is on purpose because the torpedoes are just there as an additional or an extra. The main damage dealer of this ship and this line in total is going to be those guns. And now the 10-kilometer torpedo range is going to allow us to utilize our concealment as it is high, and we'll get to that. It's going to give us more of a leeway between where ships can sail into, potentially stealth torpedo now about 3 or 4 kilometers out of our detection range, which is going to be awesome. It allows a little bit more flexibility, which is great. It's super nice at this tier, and we can basically dump those torpedoes in the water while kiting away, firing at the enemy ships, and hopefully those ships can turn into our torpedoes, which now with these ships, as we've seen in previous tiers, we can kind of bait with our guns to launch torpedoes in a direction that we think the ship will sail and turn broadside to get all of its guns to bear, and instead taking all of our torpedoes. This ship is going to be very, very useful in those situations, especially with the Delny as well. You can see that. And the Kiev could kind of do that a little bit as it did have the 8-kilometer torpedoes. And basically anything over 8 kilometers, I can say you can really start doing that and really trolling a lot of ships at too as well. These have standard depth charges. Now we do have AA on this ship. Again, wouldn't really rely too much on the AA with the Russian DDs in general. If you want more AA, I guess, if you want more AA out of your ship, that's more of the Grozovoy line you're going to get with that, as you do have it coupled with the defensive AA fire consumable, which is going to help emphasize your kind of hybrid role and countering to the AA as well. But basically with this ship, you're going to have the continuous damage of 146 on these mounts, and that AA firing range is about 6 kilometers, or it is 6 kilometers. Short range, you're looking at 81, mean range, you're looking at 122, and that long range, you're looking at 56. You guys are getting too flack with this. Again, you have it. These numbers aren't going to deter enemy aircraft from going ahead and striking you. The only thing that's going to be a problem when striking you is either if you have the smoke screen, which again, I've recommended to people that are not as comfortable with the open gun running role, or if this is like their first time going down a DD line, 100% go ahead and take the smoke. But for those that are a little bit more daring, that want to get the most out of this vessel and how it plays, I do recommend the heal. But basically, it's going to be either your smoke screen or your speed are going to be the best deterrents you have against enemy aircraft. But like we always do, make sure that in your destroyers, you go ahead and press that P key, which is going to turn off your AA. And if you go ahead and priority sector one of your sides, is automatically going to turn on your AA when it gets in range. You can go ahead and start shooting planes down as well when it's within your AA range, or I would say right before you get detected, or right when you get detected, go ahead and pop on your AA. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have on all of our DDs in this game, we start with the AA turned off, as it's going to allow us for better survivability, and potentially we kind of sneak up to the cap a little bit better, and use our stealth to some degree before people already know, the Tashkent's going to sea, I can already prepare accordingly, kind of thing. So with the maneuverability of the ship, and again, I might have the flags on this ship, and I should go ahead and turn them off, but I forgot to. So you're looking at 42.5 knots of speed. So the CRM mic's going to go ahead and get you to 44.6 knots. Pretty damn fast. Obviously, it's not the fastest ship for its tier. I believe that is going to the Mogador at 43.5 and the Paolo Emilio with 43.5. So the Tashkent is just right there in the third slot, but technically second, as the Paolo and Mogador are tied for first. So you're right there with speed, guys. Very fast, very respectable. And use that to your advantage, right? You're going to be able to use that to your advantage, rudder juke a lot of people as well, and throw off enemy salvos. Turning circle radius is an abysmal 730. Now, if my math is correct, it's not the worst at this tier. I believe the worst goes to Palomilio at 810, but there's a bunch of ships at 730 that is tied. You actually tie that of the Mogador. 730 is not the best, not great at all. Obviously, the Felix Schultz and Palomilio are crying in a corner, but those ships both have smoke to go ahead and conceal. That is confirmed. They have smoke. They're going to use that. Whereas the Mogador and Tashkent are using either their speed or, in the Tashkent's case, if it wants to use the heal or smoke to kind of help with that, because you're going to be getting hit with that. So you have to make sure you plan your maneuvers accordingly and make sure that there are no PEDs potentially in the water at the time, or any ship like a Venezia holding their sour for you to go broadside as well. So just use a little situational awareness as that. And our rudder shift time is ahead at 5 seconds. I believe this is up there, fourth worst. I believe the Paolo Emilio and Felix Schultz are tied at 5.3, and the Udaloy is actually tied at 5.3 as well. The Tashkent is coming in at 5 seconds, only getting beaten by the Adriatico, the Italian Tier 9 DD, which technically is the same ship as this, just under the Italian nation's flag. And that has 4.8 seconds. Going into the concealment values of the ship. Now, as we saw previously, I go ahead and I do recommend taking the concealment system modification 1 in that 5th slot, because it's going to give us a little bit more leeway. So that's going to come in at 8. So our standard with the ship for detect, with the Tashkent, let me go ahead and get to her real quick. I don't know why it's not selected, is 8.9. So we go ahead and slot that module, giving us 8 kilometers, and we take the commander skill, which is getting us down to 7.2, which I would recommend. It gives us the most amount of leeway as possible. Some people are going to go ahead and just not, basically say fuck off to the captain skill, and they're going to utilize 4 points something else. I can clearly see that being a viable option. And some people go ahead and say they fuck right off with the detection of the upgrade slot, and I've seen people actually go ahead and take the steering gears mod 2, and sometimes, in really rare case, I've tried this one too with the ship consumable action time plus 10 as well. There's a bunch of different things you can go ahead and play around with depending on emphasizing what playstyle you want to do. For me, for the standard DD role that I think gets the most out of this ship without being very niche is the double concealment with either the upgrade and the captain skill. But I can definitely see arguments to be made for either not taking one or the other. For sure, probably wouldn't not take both, just because you want to have concealment that you can work with, where 8.9 is pretty hefty. To not have any improved armor plating or anything like that, I don't know. Doesn't really seem like a smart decision for me, though. If it works for you guys, do it. Keep doing it. And if you want to try it out, by all means, try it out. But for me, from what I've seen and what I've played, doesn't really work out that much for me. So, yeah, so that is the ship in a nutshell. Obviously, we've talked about this in the past. You have the repair party, or you could take the smoke screen. In my opinion, the way the ship plays at its best is with the heel. I believe it is a nuisance with the heel, and it really differentiates from other ships with the heel. And that's why I recommend doing it. Again, because you're open water gunboating, these ships highly benefit from the engine boost modification 1, which is going to add 30% consumable action time to your vessel. I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing that, because when your speed boost is active, you're at your most, you're at your peak, you're at your best, you're less vulnerable. But when your engine boost is down, you're at your most vulnerable. So having it 30% longer is definitely going to increase our survivability indirectly, and that's why I go ahead and do that. If you don't have that, then go ahead and slot that engine room protection, as it's just going to help you with the chances of things getting out of capacity, or your repair time is going to be increased as well to your steering gears and your engine. So that's what I would recommend if you're not going to want to spend the coal to pick up the engine boost modification. But yeah, I mean, the Tashkent, guys, it's a good mix of everything we have thus far. All the gimmicks of the line are kind of melding into one, and you really get the most out of her. Now, I have seen an argument out there that people are saying, hey, the Tashkent, in my opinion, is the highlight of this line, and the line really stops at the Tier 9 Tashkent. And I can honestly say I sort of agree with that. There are some times like, well, why would I even want to play the Delny? The Delny feels very kind of meh. It feels power creep to hell. It feels irrelevant at times. And I'll go ahead and show that video later on. I'll get to that one down the road. But I definitely want to just touch base on the Tashkent and say this is a gem. This ship is very good at what it does. And she's at a tier where she can go against theoretically tier 7s. And of course, on the other coin flip, or the other side of the coin, she goes against tier 11s, which are your super ships. So, and again, tier 9 matchmaker is not the most forgiving in this game, at the game at this point in time. But again, she can still be, she's very competitive, and she can be a very big nuisance on the in game, especially if played right on a flank. So, anyways, enough of me talking, guys. Let's go ahead and show you some gameplay and see how she does in battle. Alrighty, guys, here we are in battle with the Tashkent. Honestly, the battle itself is an okay game. I wouldn't really say this is like any E rank. By all means, it's not. I think I finished with like a 2 rank here, but I still think it highlights kind of what this ship does well each battle. And if you kind of play somewhat similar to this, I think you can get a lot out of her. Obviously, if you're a better player than me, by all means, you're going to be playing better. But more specifically, I just did what I preach, and I got, a decent result out of her. I think I only finished like 72,000 damage, but hey, this is the non-bullshit channel. How I play, I don't cherry pick games. How I play is how I play. So notice how I come in, use the island to my advantage. I go ahead and kite out. And I begin the kiting session with my speed boost active. Obviously, the Sin Yong, I know this is a very dangerous target to a ship like myself, but I'm going to go ahead and do most of it, which I can, do the best what I can while utilizing my armor piercing. Obviously, he plays this fairly well. I have to obviously turn out anyways because I don't want to beach. That's a death sentence. But I'm trying to utilize the armor piercing, but he is just slightly too angled for me, and it's just not going to be that effective. Of course, my torpedoes all miss and whiz by. But yeah, so we're just going to try to do our booty wiggle and get out of there as best we possibly can and with as much HP intact. Obviously, the Kitakaze, or whoever this is farming us. Yeah, the Star Kitakaze is going to be farming us. So we're going to go ahead and turn our attention to him. Now that I know the Sin Yong is behind the island, I can go ahead and kind of stop, go quarter speed or whatever, kind of speed juke, and hopefully deal some damage to the enemy Kitakaze here as much as I possibly can. Because he's also keeping his self detected as well while trying to engage me. Obviously, with his floatier shells and his poor aim, I know that I am going to out-trade him. Again, highlighting those great shell flight time to the target is just awesome. It's like I said in the video, I think with the Pavorsky, these are laser beams. Utilize that to your advantage. And that's why I do recommend taking the main battery and a specialist, that 4-point captain skill there at the bottom left of the 4th tier, because it is going to extend your range to 15.1. And the longer you are, the further range you are against a lot of these other ships that are floatier shell arcs or whatnot, or just floating shell time, you're going to be able to outtrade them more reliably with these guns. So that's where I think the ship is really the bread and butter of the ship, is her artillery at longer ranges. And that's why I do believe her to be kind of that second wave of DDs. So again, you saw on this flank, I didn't spawn with a destroyer on my flank, so I kind of had to play this a little bit more cautiously than I normally would. And that's also why I didn't go to sea. Notice how I didn't go to sea in the beginning of the game. I feel like these ships just don't really do too well when they're by themselves on a flank, and going to the cap is really a death sentence, so I wanted to make sure I provided the most amount of vision possible for my team. I didn't just go die and commit suicide essentially by going to the cap, because there's no way Kitakaze at close ranges I'm going to be able to outtrade or win potentially against a Kitakaze. So here's a good example of the armor piercing against a super light cruiser like the Sin Yong. I'm going to go ahead and come around, and we're going to start scoring some Citadel ribbons. Again, you can most certainly punish these ships and take very little in return, so definitely use that to your advantage as well, guys. With that armor piercing is certainly potent on these vessels. With the high shell velocity of these ships, decent AP damage. The 130s definitely can schwack, and they will schwack hard, especially against those lightly armed targets. So with her HE, I don't think I covered her HE shells, which again, that's my bad. The HE shells of this ship are not bad. They have an 8% fire chance, and you're getting about 5.8 fires per minute. I don't take Demo Expert because I just don't have the skill points to spare for it, but I go ahead and take the Signal Flags, which is going to bump me up to around a 9% fire chance, which is pretty good. So basically, you're going to be getting around 6 fires per minute in this ship, which again is not terrible. But you're going to be landing a lot of shells on target, which is going to be 6, and I've noticed that a lot. The Tashkent is pretty damn accurate. We're not talking Felix Schultz levels or Elbing levels of accuracy, but again, with standard DD dispersion, she's going to be able to land shells on her target more reliably, just because her shells are more comfortable to use, especially at the medium longer ranges where we want to be playing this ship. These ships dominate on a flank. That's how I recommend you play with them, is on a flank. Again, if you have another DD either in your division or spawn on the same flank as you that's going to contest the cap, by all means, go and support that destroyer as you should be, being that the extra set of guns for her as well. So that's what I would do personally. Now, one thing I want to talk about with the Tashkent is my captain build. As you saw, I actually don't have any room to take Superintendent, which is going to give me an extra charge on my speed boost and an additional charge of my repair party. Now, on this ship, because you can't slot the range, extending the range mod in the 6 upgrade slot, to me it's a no-brainer and a requirement. It is a must-take on the main battery AA specialist, the tier 4 skill. It's going to extend your range out to 15.1. But what you can do to compensate, if you really want that superintendent, you can actually drop the concealment expert, which is going to bring you to about 8.1 kilometer detection. And go ahead and utilize those 4 points and use 3 of those to use that on your superintendent. And I believe you do have an additional point left over after that, and you can go ahead and take like expert marksman or expert loader to either help with your turret traverse time or go ahead and help with your shell switching time. That is also a very, very viable build, and I think you would get a lot out of that build as well. I have played around with that build. It has been successful for me, but the reason I'm highlighting this build is I think generically speaking, this is the superior build to take, which is going to be better in all sorts of situations rather than just very niche at one. Obviously, this build I'm going for is more of an annoyance open water gunboating build. And again, you're going to be getting more out of having a higher detect anyways, because you're going to have that fearless brawler almost mandatorily lit, or lit the entire game, or higher range, just have it lit rather than being more concealable at 7.6. But then again, with 15.1 kilometer detection, if you're openly or oftenly shooting, you're going to be detected anyways, but you're going to be getting the most out of that fearless brawler skill as well. Now, here's a good example. Again, now this commander, I don't have fearless brawler, and I don't have the main battery AA specialist, which again I'd love to have, but again I'm trying to show you gameplay too. One, it's one of the better games I got, but I'm trying to show you too that even if you have a lower point commander, you can still apply the same sort of play style, tips, and tactics to get, again, a good result in your ship. Being this annoying open water gunboating ship, keeping, I guess, at max range of 12.7 and some change, because that's all you have, is going to be doing just as effective as if I was 15.1. The only reason with the 15.1 is, yes, I'm going to be able to shoot from greater distance, but that's also going to directly correlate to a higher chance of survivability just because I'm further away, therefore making the skill gap or skill difference on the people playing the specific ships they're playing definitely smaller in regards, or sorry, wider, because they're going to have to know how to aim accordingly against ships such as the Tashkent, with our higher speed and can rudder juke pretty damn effectively at those ranges. So look at that like a double-edged sword as well, in a good way that it's only, 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially, by taking the main battery AA specialist, as not only you're going to be increasing your main battery range to do more damage at range, but it's also going to increase your survivability, basically, or essentially, by being at those ranges. Now, at the end of the game here, I wouldn't recommend engaging a Hindenburg at these ranges of only 12.7 or sub that. Obviously, he has a cruiser. He has 12 203mm guns, and of course, he's going to be deterring his attention to me. Why would you not? I should have stopped firing about a couple salvos ago to fall off, but I let my greediness take advantage of me, as I thought, if I can keep this guy lit, maybe some other ships will go ahead and help me out as well. So, but yeah, the Hindenburg, potent. You got to be careful when engaging this guy. I should have stopped firing a while ago. So I apologize for that. Would not recommend doing that. But maybe if he's still staying broadside to shoot me with all of his guns, maybe he's sitting broadside to other ships behind me that can go ahead and punish him. But it was my mistake. But here I want to, before we get to the end of the video, as we are getting later and later into the replay, I do want to highlight a couple things with Tashkent, just kind of go over some general tips and tricks I have with her. Obviously the rudder juke, the speed juking is going to be huge, especially at ranges. You go ahead and throw off a lot of enemy incoming salvos, as you're seeing here. Adjusting speed can do this, as remember, you are going 42 knots base, and that's with the speed boost ceramic flag. You're pushing well over 47, 48. Ships are going to have to give you a lot of lead time. So you can utilize that to your advantage, especially when you're back at 15, 14 kilometers, and go ahead and rudder juke them. And the likelihood of them hitting you is a very slim, a really slim margin basically at those ranges. So definitely go ahead and use that to your advantage. The second one I want to do is your concealment value. Know your concealment value and know the enemies on the enemy team. The destroyers will have their maximum concealment values listed on the team screen. So go ahead and familiarize yourself with that as well, just so you know kind of what your ranges are at that you're going to have to potentially who you're going to have to be fighting and what to go against. And then obviously understanding who has the radar and whatnot. I know one thing that you have to be careful of, not necessarily in this ship, but in a lot of DDs now, is the Clausewitz, eventually or inevitably the Z57, and the Hanover are going to have that 7 kilometer hydro, so you're going to have to be aware of that, especially if you're sitting and farming in your smoke screen. Because I have seen a lot of DDs caught off guard with that as well. Of course, this guy had his heal up and started healing when he was like, what, 3,000, 4,000 HP less. I think I was pretty confident I could take him, but maybe he was holding off that heal. So either he was a very, very good player and knew what he was doing there, or it just so happened made, sheer dumb luck that he had his heal up and was going to outtrade me and kill me. So that was my bad. Didn't really read that situation very well. Thank God you have teammates that are willing and able to shoot him when they did. Here we are getting in later game here. I believe it's 4v4, and obviously with my lower HP pool, I can't just rush in there and start capping. That's not the play. Obviously with the Illinois being a high DPM battleship, I have to be aware where he's at as well. Also having my 7.6 detectability with, I believe, a submarine and a DD still in play. I believe there's the Fletcher floating around somewhere on the outside of B and the submarine. So I definitely don't want to go in there and potentially get myself spotted. The best thing I can do is launch torpedoes at the general direction of the Illinois, thinking that he's going to keep reversing out, but when he gets reversed out enough, he's going to start accelerating forward and sail right into my torpedoes. It's kind of my initial impression here, but we do have some other ships here that are going to slap him pretty hard and actually take him out of this game, which is going to be good for us because it's going to allow us to start pushing forward and spotting the other targets for our team. But yeah, basically that's kind of the Tashkent in a nutshell, guys. Is you are a gunboat in its purest form, and this ship is definitely going to excel at longer ranges, and it loves to bully enemy destroyers. But the problem, or the best counter the enemy DDs have to this thing, other than if you're just a higher DPM destroyer than this thing, is going to be the smoke screen and someone else spotting you thing. That's going to be obviously a massive killer for this thing. And again, support. If enemy destroyers have the support against you, you're going to be kind of null and void. So you're going to have that situational awareness to know where to position your ship to get the most out of her. I definitely believe the ship is a flanking destroyer, not a good cap contester. None of these Soviet DDs are good cap contesters. Only the Grozavoy line, in my opinion, is going to kind of have that similar sort of play style with that normally that most destroyers have in this game, which is going to be contesting caps. But not this gunboat line, not the Downley line. I think it's going to be better played on a flank, at least in my opinion. So, as the game's winding down here, I was telling my team, obviously communicating, we see that the Fletcher is flipping C. I'm going ahead and go towards C. Before that, I'm going to dump my torpedoes, anticipating that he's going to be sailing this way to kind of slap the Azuma with torpedoes. Potentially sailing into my torpedoes was my initial impression. But yeah, we're going to go. Hopefully we're going to find this enemy DD and we're going to kill him. I was kind of letting my team, or asking my team if they knew or they're familiar with how much HP the Fletcher had left. It's always a good tactic to utilize, as I don't have the mod that shows the HP of vessels when they were last spotted. That's just a personal preference thing, and I just don't have that. So whatever, you don't need the mods like that to tell you to use an educated guess. Obviously, I'm assuming the Fletcher has more HP than me, and I'm at a massive disadvantage. But you know what? If I can spot his last known location, maybe spot him, which is a split second, that gives my enemy, or gives my allies enough time to potentially shoot him as well. I think that's a win. Especially if I trade with this guy, I think that's a win in its own right. So, but yeah, the Tashkent, obviously with her speed too, she definitely does a good job going from flank to flank, from cap to cap. Really crossing the map in really good time, really good numbers. Obviously, this is going to help, supporting various flanks. If you see a flank is struggling and potentially getting overrun, you can rip over there from your flank that's potentially dominating to go ahead and assist that other flank. Very good for that. So the one thing I like to say, especially when you're playing ships like this, you're playing ships like the Elbing, pure gunboats, you definitely want to play these larger flotilla destroyers as DDs that are are basically light cruisers without a citadel. It's kind of the way you have to go in it with this sort of mindset. I feel like you're just going to get flat out better results than trying to play them as destroyers, essentially. Um, because the detection is relatively higher, and because they have no citadel and they have quite the DPM on these things, I believe that if we're looking at overall, the AP DPM of the Tashkent is around 187,200, with the HE DPM is around 136,800. I mean, the DPM is not terrible. Obviously, there's going to be far superior DDs at this tier for the DPM department. I believe if we're looking at like raw HE DPM, the Friesland at 233,000, and the raw AP DPM of the Groningen and Friesland as well with 280,000. I mean, granted, that's in like a whole different league. Your guns are definitely nothing to take lightly, especially when it comes to engaging armored destroyers. So. But again, you have to just pick your spots. You have to know the enemy ships you're fighting, know who has what, and at what ranges, who has the floatier shells. Obviously, the Friesland Groningen have the floatier shells and are harder to land on the target at the longer ranges. So if you can engage the Friesland, if he's detected, at 13, 14, 15 kilometers, that's going to give a massive advantage to you. And that's going to be more in your element. But if you get around like 8, 9, 7 kilometers, that's definitely going to be more of an element to the Gran or the Friesland. Obviously here we happen to detect the Fletcher trying to make a play here. We hit him just enough to eliminate him from this game. And again, I'm still sailing towards where his ship was, kind of going towards the island in case I'm anticipating enemy torpedoes that are in the water to use to the fullest here. So obviously my main thing here is I'm not going to be engaging the Cohorn whatsoever. I want to just detect him for my team, and hopefully my team can deal with him. As we think we still have what 2 battleships left, right? They can go ahead and deal with the light cruiser. Obviously, with me almost dead, if I die, there's a potential that he just flies around the map undetected and caps various things. And yeah, we don't want that. So obviously he's coming flying in. Almost catches me off guard here, but we're fast enough, and we have hands that we're able to sail away, and our allied battleships start letting it rain on him. So dumping my Peds in the water because he's sailing in, trying to anticipate where he's going to turn in. I thought he was going to turn towards our battleships to mitigate the potential damage he's going to be facing. Obviously, he turns out to get all of his guns to bear. It's a toss-up, really. It is a toss-up, which hats off to this guy. This guy played very well this game in this cohort. I think he's like racked up like, what, 3 or 4 kills. So very well. I'm sure he did well in the damage department as well. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and spot him. And hopefully our allied battleships can go ahead and deal with him swiftly, so we can go ahead and win this game, as it is looking pretty good right now. But again, I think the game highlights just what makes the ship pretty strong, right? Her speed, her guns, her accuracy, and it's kind of a good hodgepodge mix of all these tools now that we've acquired from the beginning of the line to the middle of the line to now towards the end of the line, where we really start melding them all together. So all those lower tiers that we didn't free XP and fly our way through are teaching us how to be better Soviet DD players, especially gunboat DD players, right? So and good final salvo by our battleships. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Hope these tips help you, and I will catch you all in the next video, guys. Alrighty, peace out.